minutes at the end, so I'm going to just have you briefly wrap it up there. Mr. Barrett, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
$21 billion spent on outside contracting with the NDP Liberal government, looking like they're going to continue that trend. Is that something that concerns your members, that acceleration to levels that are historic?
Yes. Look, there's a time and a place for using consultants. There's nothing inherently wrong when it's done for the right reasons. But when it becomes the de facto practice, this is an issue.
And on the Arrive scam, which we saw both the NDP and the Liberals vote to continue to pour more money into this failed program, two of the highest paid contractors received a combined total of $27 million, with 30% commissions going to 4 people on $27 million. I'm sure that that would not meet with the approval of your members, the expenditure of those funds on 4 people instead of investment in more resources, personnel, or training for your members.
I can tell you that had my members seen this, flags have been raised, right? There's something known as price review. So look at an example with a chair. If you're selling a chair to the government of Canada, are you selling me that chair at a price you would normally charge someone else for it, another company? Or are you charging me more because I am the government of Canada? So by doing a simple market comparison, we could say, do these rates make sense? Is the work that you're asking to be performed, does it take that amount of time normally?
And so you talk about flags being raised. These are 2 companies doing $27 million in business with 4 employees. Is that something that would raise red flags?
If my members were consulted and they would have seen that something compared to what it's worth normally in the market, yes, it would have raised the flag. But again, I can't speak to this particular example because I don't know if that's normal or not.
Do you believe that Canadian taxpayers got good value for money with the Arrive Can app?
Can't comment because there's not even a financial record of how much was spent, right? In order to be able to assess value money for Canadians, you need to know exactly how much was spent. And we can't even do basic, based on the Auditor General's report, we can't even identify how much Arrive Can actually cost.
So would you say that there was good financial oversight or project management?
No, there's definitely not good financial oversight.
Have you ever seen a project that has been as mismanaged as this Arrive Can that the Auditor General said she believes cost about $60 million, which I'm sure you would agree is an indictment of the financial record keeping when you have the Auditor General who can't definitively say what the project cost was?
I've never seen something of this nature. And I can tell you for my members, it's very frustrating because if any one of them would have been consulted, we could just let us do our job. This is not, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. This is basic bookkeeping. This is easy to prevent these things.
How long did you work for PSPC for?
Approximately 10 years.
So in your decade of time at PSPC, how often did you see bait and switch, as it was described by the procurement ombudsman, used in contracting?
I myself have seen a few occasions, and I can tell you with our members that have been there as well, that had suspicions. And I say suspicions because, again, we can only know what we see. If we're not seeing all the information, it's difficult for us to make an accurate assessment of the situation. Now, mind you, sometimes that's part of the strategy. If the information is all not being flowed through one point of contact, well, we can keep certain people in the dark.
With Arrive Can, it was detailed that it was almost 3/4 of the resources were bait and switch. Did you see anything or hear reports from your members of anything to that level?
Not on my personal experience, no.
And to reports to you by members?
Some members have alluded to it, but again, couldn't prove it.
And why do you think that the government cut your members out of this process? We've heard the Auditor General say that the public health emergency was not a valid excuse to throw the rules out the window. The rules being, the ones that your members operate by every day. So why did they cut you out? And why has there not been a concession? Why hasn't the government conceded that doing that was wrong?
I can't speak to the government's part, but I can tell you, generally speaking, when you are dealing with financial officers and auditors, it can be perceived as lagging in time, right? If you want done something quickly, well, maybe you don't want accountants and auditors in there. However, if you want something done well and for bringing value to the Canadians, you want to have financial officers in there. You want accountability. You want properly documented records. You want people that when they're signing an invoice, they know what they're signing for. So although it could be perceived as saving time, you're not going to save money, that's for sure.
Thank you.
You didn't save any money with this thing.
Turning now to Ms. Khalid, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And just to follow up on the questions from my Conservative colleagues, I mean, we have had so many meetings on this, and I think that we are all equally quite alarmed by how much money was spent on this app and how this was panned out, the lack of documents. And I'm a little frustrated with how the Conservatives are trying to pin this on Justin Trudeau going and signing documents and being nefarious and all of that. But I think I'll leave it to Mr. Richard. Sir, who exactly do you represent?
We represent financial professionals. So again, accountants, controllers, auditors, members that are there to ensure the financial integrity, to ensure the Financial Administration Act is being respected. However, if our members are not allowed to do their job, right? For example, if someone were to say, come to my member, hey, Danny, your member didn't do any proper bookkeeping. Well, they never privy to the information. They were never consulted, right? If a member didn't do their job, I'll be the first one to say, what were you doing? What were you thinking, right? There's accountability here. It's not just for our members as financial
100%.
professionals. But
100%, I agree. And it's about accountability of holding the right people to account rather than trying to diminish the value of our democratic institutions at this point. And I think that you do a very important job, Mr. Richard. So and perhaps you can help us understand how the 30,000 jobs that the previous Conservative government cut has impacted where we are today with the CBSA and with all of this ArriveCAN issue.
Whenever you do job cuts, there's a few ways of doing it, right? So the most popular one is through attrition. It's perceived as the most, lack of a better word, easiest one. However, when you let people go through attrition, where does the work go? So I'll use a simple example here. Say there's a two-person unit. One person retires, and they say, well, you know, we're going to save money. We're not going to backfill this position. Well, what about all those tasks, those duties, that workload? Who does that go to? That now falls onto one person who's asked to do not only their job, but their coworker's job. So inevitably, you're going to have way too much workload. You're unable to do your job. You're going to have some performance issues. You're going to be stressed out. So anytime you cut jobs, it's going to have consequences.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, when those 30,000 jobs were cut, it was Prime Minister Harper in power and the current opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, who was the Minister of Employment. So I think it speaks a lot to what the long-term impacts of policy decisions really are. So the Auditor General's report and it's questions around how public service procurement happens. What do you have to say? So we're talking about middle management here that made decisions that did not record all of these financial contracts that were made. What do you think are the next steps that we can take to ensure that this does not happen? We are absolutely on the right track. Yes, the government is to account. Yes, ministerial responsibility is there. But at the end of the day, where is the public service on this? How are they ensuring that they are fulfilling their accountability requirements to ensure that they're not taking advantage of the public dollar?
So a few things. First, we need accountability, right? The Financial Administration Act was not followed. Someone has to be accountable for that. Someone looked the other way. Something happened. I don't know the why. I don't know who, but something wasn't done properly. Second, we need to make sure that like I was saying before, if we're protecting whistleblowers, when someone sees something that's not right, they're more likely to speak up. They'll want to do the right thing. Third, reduce reliance on contractors and let our members do their job. We are eager professionals looking forward to be able to go and dig in there, find anomalies, go find dollars for the taxpayer to make sure it's spelled wise, to make sure that we can add value. But we need to be let in. Open up your doors. Let us in. We want to be an ally.
I really appreciate that, and I think you raise a really, really good point. We have to make sure that our public service is ready to and is capable and trusted enough to be able to take on those contracts and those consulting roles in order to fill in where those gaps are necessary. So, as we talk about
A brief question, Ms. Khalid. You're at your time, so
retention of
quick question.
employees. Just asking for you, Mr. Richard, what do you think the next step for our public service is at this point?
Specific to ArriveCan, there needs to be accountability, and we need to reinforce the message that the rules that are in place exist for a reason. Our members can help you. Just let us do our job.
Thank you very much. Turning to our third round, as I said, members will have 4 minutes, and I will probably remind each of you when you have 30 seconds left so we don't go over. Ms. Block, you have the first 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm going to look back at the opinion piece that you wrote back in November of 2021. And in it, you stated, you talked about the familiarity Canadians have with the important work of the Auditor General. But then you go on to observe that it's the 6,000 accountants, auditors, and financial management professionals working away in programs and departments who are tasked with ensuring public funds are spent appropriately in the first place. Does this include CFOs?
Our members don't represent CFOs. We don't represent CFOs, no. However, the Auditor General often looks after the fact, right? We only look at the past. Our members, if they're positioned well in the front end, we can prevent blunders from happening in the first place.
Thank you. It is my understanding that chief financial officers are responsible, or they have a procurement organization that works under them, and that they actually sign off on funding requests. Is that their role?
Correct.
Thank you very much. You also made a statement in your article. You stated that the staffing system as it currently exists rewards and prioritizes those who know how to work the system, not those who are most qualified and capable. Can you explain what you mean by work the system?
Yeah, certainly. And I don't think it's any secret. Generally speaking, if you work with numbers, you tend to be more of a, not necessarily a people person. So, remember, you're an introvert. And I say this because we've got members that do fantastic work. However, they're not necessarily the most popular when it comes to being sociable or interacting with their coworkers or going out or getting making a name for themselves. And so often what happens is people that get promoted is, well, who is liked? Okay. Who is someone that I get along with, right? And often maybe you don't get along with an accountant that's asking you some questions.
Right. Thank you. In their testimony before the OGO committee, Bottler AI raised the issue of kickbacks. And then again this week on CTV, they alleged that there have been bribes. Do you have any concerns about this or about any potential criminality?
I've never witnessed kickbacks. I haven't heard any members raise kickbacks, so I couldn't speak to that effect. However, it's always a possibility. And again, that's why you have a code of ethics. That's why you have internal rules. That's why you monitor transactions to the best of your abilities. You can never eliminate risk, but you can reduce the risk. You can mitigate the risk. You can ensure that proper controls are put in place to reduce the probabilities of things like this happening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a minute. Okay, so you had responded to one of my colleagues that one way of ensuring that the door is not open to fraud is having the proper controls.